Shasta Daisies, the perfect flower to add a touch of white to your landscape and garden. In this video, we'll talk about how to plant, how to fertilize, how to water, how to prune, disease control, and so much more. Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Warren, and you're watching The Plant Doctor. Let's get started. So I had to pull out my notes for this one. It was just too much to memorize. I want to tell you about how Shasta Daisy was developed. This plant is native to nowhere. So a gentleman by the name of Luther Burbank, who is an acclaimed horticulturalist, he created this, crossbred it in 1890. He crossed Leucanthemum faximus with Leucanthemum lucrusti, which created one hybrid. And then he took that hybrid and crossed it with Nipanthamphium nipponicum, and that gave him a cross that we refer to as Leucanthemum X superbum. So anytime you see an X in a scientific name, that means it's a crossbreed between two different species. And so Shasta Daisy is going to be actually a cross between three different species. So we took the original two, crossed, we took that crossed it with another plant to get this. And so Mr. Burbank named it Shasta Daisy because he thought that the petals reminded him of the snow-capped mountain in California known as Mount Shasta. He thought that the flower looked just like the snow-capped peaks, and thus we came up with Shasta Daisy. Shasta Daisy has had several cultivars gain the Royal Horticultural Society Garden of Merit Award, and some of these include Becky, Snow Lady, and Tinkerbell. There's several others, but those are kind of the three most popular ones. Shasta Daisies are rated for USDA zones 4 through 9. So I want you to think the deep south all the way up into like the Ohio River Valley, and then from there it's basically east-west across the country. As long as you're in 4 through 9, you can grow Shasta Daisies. Now they do like full sun to part shade. Where I have them here, this is probably a part shade situation. I'm going to show you another area I have a lot. It's also part shade. And one thing I've seen in part shade situations is they'll get a little leggy. You'll see a little bit of what we call phototropism, so a plant's tendency to bend towards light. In full shade situations, they're just not going to do well at all. So the more sun, the better with your Shasta Daisies. Diseases of Shasta Daisy. Really, all we're concerned about in Shasta Daisy is going to be fungal diseases, and even then, it's fairly minimal. You may see some necrosis, you may see some powdery mildew, and even then, it tends to be later in the season. Remember, these are perennials. They go dormant at first frost, and they stay dormant until the next spring. When they come out in the spring, I never see any fungal issues. This year I've seen fungal issues on my Shasta Daisies, but full disclosure, I've had an unusual amount of rain. There's been a ton of moisture, a lot of humidity. It's prime conditions for fungal spores to be moving around and getting on different plants in the landscape. And Shasta Daisies are going to get some of that. You can spray them if you want an organic method. You could use copper sulfate. Daconil works well on all of those, necrosis and powdery mildew. Captan works well on Shasta Daisies as well. I'll make sure to leave links to those down in the description below in case you get some fungal issues with your Shasta Daisies. If you're further west, you have lower humidity levels. So I'm in North Alabama, long summers, humid summers. Say you're in Colorado, you may not have any fungal issues at all, but if you're like Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, you're probably going to see a little bit of necrosis, a little bit of powdery mildew. It's not the end of the world. Just watch it, and if you start to see it to the point of defoliation, you may want to go ahead and spray. There's two main time periods that we need to think about pruning Shasta Daisy. And the first one is after the first bloom. For me here in zone 8A, these Shasta Daisies, they're going to start blooming in May and they're going to show out in June, and they'll start to peter out around the first part of July. And at that time, I can come in and cut them down by about half. Just take the flowers off of them completely. You can take a pair of shears and cut them and take the spent flowers off. And then about 60 days later, they're going to flower again. So they're going to flower for me again in August. And that's what you see here is a second flush. So I came in late June, early July, I cut them off and they flowered out again. So that's the first pruning. The second pruning is going to be when we have a frost. For me, my average first frost is November the 11th. It can come anywhere between Halloween and Thanksgiving, but after I have a frost, I'll come in and I'll cut these down about 3 to 6 inches off of the ground. So I'm taking a lot of vegetation off of these Shasta Daisies here behind me and just raking all this out. So then once I do that, I'll come back in with mulch. I use pine straw, but you could use pine bark nuggets, whatever mulch is readily available, whatever organic mulch, not organic in the chemical sense, but stuff that'll break down, stuff that'll decompose that was once living. I'll come back in and put that over the top of my Shasta Daisies, and next spring's growth will come up through the mulch. One other thing I need to mention about pruning Shasta Daisies is the pollinator aspect. So my Shasta Daisies I have here in the yard, they're part of a much bigger picture of what I'm trying to accomplish here. In the spring and summer, this place is just loaded with flowers. And this is an insecticide-free area where we're not using any insecticide so that the butterflies and the moths and the bees, they can come in here and feed, and we're not killing them off. And we're trying to supply them with as much food as we can. And so with pruning your Shasta Daisies, one thing you may want to consider if you're attracting pollinators is to prune them in thirds. And what do I mean by that? Prune a third of them when it's time to prune. So let's say we've had that initial flush, you've still got a few Shasta Daisies that are putting on some new flowers, but for the most part, we've passed the peak of the flower. Go ahead and prune a third, wait 10 days, prune another third, wait 10 days, prune another third, and by the time you get to that last group, the ones that we pruned first, they're going to have flowers again, and that way we have Shasta Daisies for the pollinators even when we're pruning at the appropriate times. Most of the time you're not going to have to fertilize your Shasta Daisies. Even where I live, I have extremely sandy soils, 80–90% sand here, and so my soils don't hold a lot of nutrients, they leach out readily. As long as I'm mulching with some sort of organic material, pine straw, pine bark, my Shasta Daisies have more than enough nutrients to complete their life cycle year after year. Now, if you're seeing some nutrient deficiencies in your Shasta Daisies, or if you want more robust growth, one thing you can add is a slow release fertilizer. Osmocote is a slow release fertilizer. It comes in a 60, 90, I think even now 120 day prill. And it has all of our macronutrients in it, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, but it also has all those micronutrients that we often don't think about. Things like iron, magnesium, manganese, zinc, little things that plants need in trace amounts that we measure in parts per million. It has it in there, and it's going to release it at just the right time and at just the right amounts for your plants. So if you're seeing some nutrient deficiencies, I would recommend lightly fertilizing with a slow release blend fertilizer that has both macros and micros in it. If you have a tip, trick, or hack that you use with your Shasta Daisies that we did not talk about in this video, please leave that down in the comments below. Here on the channel, we're a community of learners, and I would love to learn something from you, the viewer. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and until next time, happy gardening.